the COVID-19 virus of 2020. Now, this has been a challenging, difficult time for all of us, and I think it's safe to say we are all aware that we are part of a major historical event, a major historical turning point, and the stories that will be told about this time will become history. And in this activity, you are going to tell your own story and hear the stories of others. Now, by doing this, this practice is the root of understanding yourself and understanding the perspective of others. It is also the root of history. Any event that you have read about in your history book was lived by people, and the story was told of what happened. Are those stories accurate? Are they not so accurate? Makes you think. Speaking of thinking, here's a historical thought or 6 before we start creating our own history here. You're recording. If you do record this, and your story about this pandemic, and 25 years from now, somebody listens to it, is this valid history? Is your opinion as valid as anybody else's in terms of creating history? Would your video be a primary or a secondary source? What historical perspective is being presented? What happened to you during this pandemic that would give you a particular perspective? How old are you in giving your account? Will you see it differently 10 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, 1 year from now? I don't know. Has living through this pandemic made you think of how it's going to be presented to people who haven't been born yet? How are you going to present it to them? Years from now, a young person brings a textbook to you. What are you going to say about it? How has this event changed the world? How has it changed the nation? How has it changed your state? How has it changed your school? And how has it changed you personally? Now, this is history at 5 different scales. Are these scales interconnected? Are they not? How so? And just a thought, all history goes through this scrutiny. And as you create your own history, please bear these thoughts in mind. And when you give your story, and when you hear the story of somebody else, most likely there's going to be a beginning to the story. Now, my personal beginning was March 13th, where my very normal life of being a school teacher and being a track coach ended very abruptly. And I was told not to report to school. I think a lot of people's stories are going to begin about this time. And when somebody asks you about that, how did it feel that first day? How did it feel that first day when you realized this is not something light? This is not something that's going to go away quickly. Think about this. Now, I do feel there might be this collective experience that we've all had, and then when you put these collective experiences together, it will give the essence of what this COVID-19 pandemic was all about. How many video conferences did all of you have during this pandemic? On the left-hand side, this menu, these are all the different video conference platforms that I have had a meeting on. That's a lot. I've heard people say, I am zoomed out. I wouldn't have understood what that meant a year ago. I understand it now. The video conferencing. Social distancing. You must keep 6 feet apart. Keeping 6 feet apart. Social distancing, that's a new term. I think we may recall that term. Empty store shelves, when you went into the store and you saw this, in particular, the toilet paper aisle. How'd that make you feel? Some people got very alarmed. Some people resorted to hoarding and very unusual behaviors based on their fear and anxiety of what was going on. You might recall the political fighting at the federal level and the state level and the local level and the protests and the political divide. That may be something that stands out for you. It may not, depending on how you are wired. On a little more of a lighter note, the barber shops. You couldn't go to the barber shop to get your hair done. You had a choice. You could either let it grow or have somebody who's never cut hair use dog clippers on your head. Those were your choices. You know, a lot of bad haircuts, and it almost became a running joke. You might remember the more lighthearted side of things. You might recall this debate between what is essential, what is non-essential. Certain businesses had banners on their storefronts. We are essential. Well, what makes somebody essential? What makes somebody non-essential? What makes a business essential, non-essential? That was debated greatly during this time. The hardships and loss. Now, this video is being created on July 28th at 11 in the morning. Time is very fleeting. Time moves. As of the time I am speaking to you now, here are the statistics. 16.5 million individuals worldwide. Now, I live in Oakland County, Michigan. Here's what my county has gone through, and my state, and my nation. Now, did you have any personal experiences related to the hardship, or is this very isolated? There are people who live in very rural areas where nobody got COVID-19. So again, that personal experience is going to come into play with your perspective. You might recall our frontline workers. Now, I think as a society, we found a new level of respect for people who sacrifice themselves to keep society going. This nurse here got COVID, and a sign was put out, and you can see the white ribbons because she is a nurse, and organizations emerged like this one to honor the people who risk themselves to save others. It almost felt like what I read about during wartime, people sacrificing of themselves, putting themselves out there, being very brave to help others. I think a lot of us may recall masks. Masks might be something that we use for years and years. This may not be temporary. Masks in a public place may be something that does not go away. I'm not sure. Again, I am talking to you on July 28th. If you watch this video 10 years from now, this might be an everyday practice. This might be a laugh. I don't know, but I think we're all going to remember the first time we had to wear masks just to go grocery shopping like this. That was a major change. You may recall how people in the business world got on board. Ford Motor Company during the 1940s stopped making cars and started making items for the Allied war effort. In fact, 25% of everything that was made in World War II for the Allies came out of Detroit, Michigan. And here's a picture of what's going on in 1942. Ford Motor Company in 2020 did the same thing and made masks, millions of masks to help others. All hands on deck on a corporate level, on a personal level. You may recall online school. Did you see it as a positive? Did you see it as a negative? How did your teachers go about it? Will you appreciate traditional school when you return to it? I don't know. What thoughts are going to come to you when you tell your story? What questions are you going to ask when you find somebody else's story? So the point of this activity, you are going to tell your story for posterity, thinking that somebody in the future is going to listen to it. And maybe somebody you care about. It may be a child or a grandchild you have yet to have. It might be a niece or a nephew way into the future who would like to hear of your experience. But you're also going to hear the story of others. And I would suggest you find a diverse voice. Find somebody of a different age or of a different experience to find out their story. What's your perspective on things? What's their perspective on things? What's your most prominent memories? What are their most prominent memories? How did you cope with all of this psychologically? How are you coping with it psychologically? And vice versa, you ask somebody else the same question. How did it change you? How did it change the people around you? Think about these questions yourself, and then turn around and you can ask your person you're interviewing the same questions. Now, to create your story and interview, please go to learningtogive.org, a wonderful free resource for teachers and students. And you can check out the list of prospective questions to prime your brain to ask really good questions. Feel free to write them down. Feel free to prepare them in advance. And check out the variety of options on the site of how to conduct interviews. There are several ways to do it, and it's in an attachment at the end of this lesson. Also, if you are somebody who's a visual learner and you like a video, type in that into your search engine on YouTube. Wonderful 4 or 5 minute video on how to conduct a great interview. And to end this video, remember, your story matters. It matters. The stories of others matter. We are all going through these challenging times together, and talking helps make sense of things. So go out there and create some history, have some fun with it, and I wish you the best of luck in creating a great interview, and I think you are going to create a great interview. So thank you for watching.